Call the meeting to order. Start with roll call.
Commissioner Allen.
Present.
Commissioner Norwood.
Here.
Commissioner Siragusa.
Here.
Commissioner Roberts.
Here.
Commissioner Stallings.
Here.
Commissioner Orr.
Here.
Mayor Bankinen.
Here. Okay. Invocation tonight is going to be by Commissioner Norwood and Commissioner Stallings. Will you lead us in the pledge?
Will you please stand for a word of prayer? Lord Jesus, we thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for watching over us. Thank you for blessing us to make it to this meeting one more time. Lord, we pray for our nation. Lord, we pray for peace and unity. Lord, please touch the bereavement of those families that are going through all the tragedy. Lord, all things are in your hands. We ask that you give us the grace and mercy that we need. Lord, please touch our city government. Please touch the decisions that we make. Please touch the people in this community, our churches, our leaders. Lord, please touch every family and every home. Lord, cover us in your blood. In the mighty name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you both. Item number 3, minutes. 3.1, consider approval of the minutes of the regular commission meeting of May 17th, 2022.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion or corrections? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 4, awards, presentations, proclamations, and organizational business. Item 4.1, present pet available for adoption at the city's Animal Welfare Department.
Today we have Mercedes. She is a 2 to 3 year old gray and white pit. She is very friendly and loving. She loves water. She's available in pen 14.
Thank you. All right. Item 4.2, present Juneteenth proclamation. I'll read that here in a moment, but Mr. David Carr, are you here? Yeah. Would you come forward, please? Are you okay? Oh.
Yes, I'm going to say.
Please. How are you?
I'm fine. Are you all?
Good. I'm George.
I'm Jerry.
Jerry. I have a proclamation that I'd like to read for Juneteenth presentation. Proclamation reads as follows. Whereas our nation was founded upon these evident triumphs that all men are created equal and are endowed by the Creator with certain unalienable rights to include life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas the scourge of slavery was not abolished with our independence from England, but was left in place, requiring a cure to remove it from our land. And whereas January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation that began the long process of ending involuntary solitude in our country. And whereas on February 1st, 1865, the United States Congress began the ratification process for the 13th Amendment doing away with slavery. And whereas General Gordon found that this emancipation had not reached Galveston, Texas, and on June 19, 1865, he informed the enslaved persons of Galveston they were free at last. Now therefore be it resolved that I, George C. Panklin, Mayor of the City of Enid, do hereby proclaim that June 19th is Juneteenth Day throughout the City of Enid, Oklahoma. In witness whereof I have hereunder set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Enid to be affixed the 7th day of June, 2022. Signed, George C. Panklin, Mayor of Enid.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes. On behalf of this city of Enid, thank you we're honored for this certificate. And also, just want to let you know that I'd like to thank our community for all the support and everything. The celebration that we're about to come up in June 18th. It'll be like 2 years of celebration, and all donated from our communities and from our board members and everything. We are really proud of what we do, and what we do is just give it back to the community. That's why we do what we do for Juneteenth, and to celebrate our freedom.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, item 4.3, recognition of retiring City of Enid employee. Is this right? It says Chris Bauer?
Well, I think it's right. Chris is going to tell us here in just a minute. Come on up, Chris. Chris Bauer has been a 31-year selfless servant at the city of Enid. He's been a fixture here. Some of the commissioners that served before remember Chris because he's been here a while. And he's seen the good times, he's seen the bad times, and he's seen the good times, most of the good times, at least I think. Chris has always been dependable and helpful. He's a problem solver, and I think he's done a fantastic job. He's come to that fork in the road, and he's made a decision. I know he's not one to want to receive recognition. In fact, he said that he's not really interested in a party that we normally do, or a reception.
If you are shooting fireworks up for me.
Yeah, July 4th, right?
Yeah, every year.
This department, among other things, they always work that out with Western Enterprises with us. I've had the pleasure of working with him my whole time, and he's been here a lot longer than that, 31 years. So we have some things, but I thought before I get to you, I thought I'd just give you a chance to,
Sure.
You don't seek the limelight, but hey, you're not going to get a whole lot more opportunities, so, or at least at the city, unless you want to.
Thank you, Gerald. I want to recognize Carla Ruther. She's here this evening. I've had the good fortune of working with you. You are a top hand for the whole time that I've been here. You and I have climbed many mountains together, and it couldn't have been possible without you. It's been a treat for me, Gerald, to work under you. In the 31 years, I've served a third of that under your leadership, and I appreciate that. It's an honor to have served Enid, Garfield County, and Vance Air Force Base. And God bless all of you, and thank you.
Well, I got some stuff for you before you walk off the stage here, and then you got some more work to do.
Uh-oh.
But we got the obligatory plaque.
Thank you.
Put that somewhere.
Have a good spot for this.
We have this for you, which you probably, I think you already have some ideas how you want to spend that.
Thank you.
And I don't know if I've ever given you a coin, but you're
No.
more than earned a coin from the
Thank
city of
you, sir.
Enid for outstanding performance. Not just recently, 31 years. It takes a lot of consistency. I thank you for coming to work every day. And the mayor asked you a question. Is it true?
Yes, I am retired.
All right. Well,
Hey, live bird.
we will definitely miss you, but we have you to the end of the month, so probably one more meeting. And
I do.
but thank you very much, sir.
You bet. Have a good week.
Chris?
Thank you, you too, please. Oh, you guys. Carol? My sister.
Chris, before you go to your seat, I'd like to give you the traditional Rolex gold watch from the city, but as you know, there's no room in the budget for that, but I do have a mayor's coin.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, item 5, public
Mayor,
comments.
before you go there, there's one other item on this
Yep.
recognition. We have with us today Mr. Bud Nicholas, who was 90 years old yesterday. Let's give him a hand.
Well,
I think we
Commissioner,
could
why
sing happy
don't you
birthday.
lead us in singing?
Yeah.
I hear you got a great
I'll lead us
singing
in
voice.
singing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Bud. Happy birthday to you.
All right, the mic is yours. You have 10 minutes, sir. Commissioner Stallings, thanks for bringing that up. Very, somebody that's given to our community for a very, very long time, so we're so proud to have you here tonight. If it was the day after my 90th birthday, I'm not sure I'd come here, but I'm glad you did. So, thank you. Item number 5 is public hearings. We have one person that has signed up on the list, Mr. Wendell Shaw.
We can't have it both ways with God. We can't open with prayer, seeking His guidance and favor, having just proclaimed June as Pride Month, which is nothing less than the celebration of sexual sin. God resists the proud, but He gives the grace to the humble. Even the members of the Supreme Court will appear before the Supreme Judge, and their godless presidents will have no standing in His court. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a town sows, that shall we also reap.
Okay. Item 6, hearings. Item 6.1, hear a presentation regarding the proposed creation of increment district number 9, City of Enid, Tachyon project plan, and the proposed amendment of increment district number 7, City of Enid TP&L project plan. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Nate Ellis, Public Finance Law Group. You're a TIF counsel in this case, and so what I thought we'd do, we have 2 concurrent processes that are running. We've got the amendment of an existing tax increment district, that's the TP&L district, that's the laydown yard, and then we have a proposed new TIF district that is, we'll call it Tachyon, although they're all the same company. So, but it's a different site, new project that's related, but they do have some interrelations with each other. So I'll do a quick presentation on TIFs and the project, and then we'll open up a public hearing to talk about, I think 7, I don't know which one's first, 9 is first, and then 7. Whichever the case, then there'll be an opportunity for questions and answers. So, all right. Who do I look at to advance slides as we go?
You have the
You
clicker.
Do I have it?
Push that
Okay,
button, yeah.
perfect. Even better.
The right-hand button.
There we go. All right, so what is a TIF district? It's an economic development tool. It's authorized by the Oklahoma Constitution and state statutes, and what it does is it creates a geographic area. It captures the increment of new tax revenue that's generated from that area, and it dedicates that to specific project costs that are set out in the various documents that we'll talk about. Ultimately, the city creates a TIF district by its ordinance, but there's a process that we go through. So as a little bit of a visual, you see you have an existing tax base. So there's property out there. Depending on who owns it, it may or may not be on the tax rolls. A lot of times you've got maybe agricultural land, it's unused, underutilized, so it has a very low tax value, but it is generating some tax revenues. That's what we call the base value. The base value continues to be paid in, and it continues to go to all the different taxing jurisdictions the same way it always would. When we create a TIF district, we put things in place that cause additional development, and that generates new tax revenue, or the incremental taxes that we talk about. The increment is the portion that the TIF actually captures, and then it defines how those dollars are used in support of the project. And then once the TIF expires at the end, then we have essentially a new base tax. We have that same tax level, but all of those tax revenues are now flowing 100% to the various taxing jurisdictions. So again, the idea of the TIF district is we do things that are not going to occur on their own. We provide this incentive, we enhance the tax base, and then what we're left with at the end is we have a larger tax base that's providing more support for services of the various governmental entities. So the TIF process, we have initially an eligibility determination. In this case, both the existing TIF and the new one are in what's called an enterprise area, as designated by Department of Commerce. And so that's kind of an automatic qualifier in that regard, but the city's also done TIFs in other areas that we call like a reinvestment area, where we just have undeveloped or underdeveloped property. Doesn't necessarily have to be blighted, but certainly blighted property does qualify for that. But that's the initial determination, and then we develop what's called a project plan. So a TIF district can last up to 25 years. It can capture up to 100% of the local tax revenues, so it might be ad valorem, might be sales tax, hotel tax, whatever local tax revenues there are could potentially be a part of a TIF district. And we define the boundaries, and so there's two important boundaries that we talk about. There's the increment district, and so that's the specific area where we're going to capture TIF revenues from. So a TIF doesn't levy a new tax. All it does is it takes the ambient tax levels, whatever the millage levies are for ad valorem, whatever the sales tax rate happens to be, and it just captures the tax that's generated within that specific geographic boundary. So we have the increment district, that's where we're actually going to capture TIF revenues from, and then we have the project area, which is typically a little bit larger areas, but that encompasses anywhere where there might be project-related activities. So an example we'll talk about, we might have road improvements that are outside the boundaries of the TIF district, but directly support the particular parcels that are the subject of the TIF district. So those road improvements would be within the project area, but they'd be outside the TIF boundaries. So again, whoever owns the property, they're going to pay whatever the tax rate is. The tax rates go up and down based on millages, school elections, all that stuff. The TIF doesn't actually cause or levy an increase in tax, and the TIF does not levy a tax on anybody else in the city, so none of the tax revenue outside the increment district is actually going towards anything. It continues to be captured and go to the taxing jurisdictions as it normally would. We have within the project plan, we also define what the project is, and then any related infrastructure improvements. And what the city has tried to do historically is identify specific infrastructure components that are needed, that are beneficial to the city, but specifically needed to support whatever that particular project that's proposed is. And then there's the allocation of how the TIF revenues. We can capture up to 100%, and then we can allocate the revenues to certain project costs. That might go to specific project costs. It might go to, some of it might go back to the taxing jurisdictions. We'll talk about that here in a minute. There's a statutory TIF review committee. As you'll recall, back in April, you established that committee to consider this. And so that's comprised of representatives of the commissioners, the City Planning Commission, and then the affected taxing jurisdictions. So all the ad valorem representatives have a member of that committee, and then there's 3 at-large representatives that also sit. That review committee reviews the project plan and makes a recommendation that comes back to you ultimately prior to considering the ordinance. So we have the Pioneer Pleasant Vale Schools, Autry Technology, Garfield County, and the Garfield County Health Department. Those are the 4 ad valorem entities that receive ad valorem tax. They were all on the committee. And again, that committee makes a finding of eligibility and financial impacts, and ultimately there's a resolution. And in both cases, they've adopted a resolution unanimously recommending that you approve the amendment and approve the creation of the new TIF district. Separately, and I think planned for the 20th, we'll have a resolution on the city's planning commission agendas, where they will also make a recommendation with respect to the planning commission that will come back to the city. We hold 2 public hearings. We'll have the first one tonight. We'll have the second one on the agenda on the 21st at the next regular meeting. And then ultimately, once that is completed, and we contemplate this would happen after the hearings on the 21st, then the City Commission will consider its ordinance approving a project plan and creating the TIF. In the case of the TPNL, it would be creating or amending the TIF district. So TIF 7, this is the existing TIF district. So you see Highway 412 there along the bottom, and then that red area, or red outlined area, that's 66th Street on the left, 78th Street on the right, and then you see it's bounded on the north side by the railroad tracks. I looked, Google Maps does not have a more up-to-date picture than this. I know it doesn't look like that anymore because it's a laydown yard, so a lot of times you see big windmill blades. If you've driven by there, certainly you've seen that out there. TIF 9 is the site, if you're familiar, where the Chesterfield building is, just south of, that's 412 there at the top of the picture, and then the, I guess it's Advanced Pierre, Tyson, whoever, I think it says Advanced Pierre on the outside, but I think Tyson actually owns it now, one of their plants. So immediately to the south of that, there's a Chesterfield building, and then the parcel that's part of that property. So that's the proposed boundaries of the TIF 9, the Tachyon TIF district. And then just to put this in perspective for the whole city, you see the blue area is the municipal boundaries. The project area is that rectangle on the east side of town or on the right side of the map there. You see in the green, that's TIF district number 7. Those are the boundaries there. And then you see down in the bottom left-hand corner of the project area in the red, that's where the proposed increment district number 9 is located. So see there's proximity between the two sites already, and so they will share the same project area. So the TIF 7 project, as you are probably familiar, it's the TPNL wind energy laydown yard. So it's a transload facility. They bring components in, load them off of the train. They often store them for a period of time before they're deployed out into the field. Wind energy is the primary component of what they do out there, but they could certainly accommodate other industries as well. There's been a total capital investment out there, about $8 million. That's actually what's on the tax rolls of actual physical buildings and property improvements that they've made. The purpose, the way that TIF 7 works, the primary component is there's an incentive that's in place for the storage of inventory. So as you've seen cycle over recent years, you'll see a lot of stuff out there, and then it'll maybe whittle back down, and then there'll be a lot of stuff. So what happens is they bring these materials in ultimately to deploy into various wind farms across the state and southwest region. And if they sit there for a certain period of time, they're actually subject to property tax as inventory. And so the whole purpose of that TIF district was to try and incentivize them to have as much inventory sitting there as possible. Now they can do a pretty good job of managing it. Sometimes they can get it in and out before it's actually subject to TIF, and that's okay. That's still economic activity that's occurring in the area. But on the average, over the last 5 years, the average taxable inventory level is about $417 million. So it actually generates a fairly sizable amount of ad valorem tax on a year-to-year basis. The projects that were identified originally, there was a $2.5 million project to reconstruct 66th Street up to an industrial grade road from 412 north to Willow Road. And the TIF contributed $800,000 to that. What's proposed as part of the extension of this TIF district would be to add an additional $950,000 to improve 66th Street north of Willow for an additional, I think, 3,500 feet approximately. And this is important. If you've driven that road, you know why it's important. It's really not in good shape, and it's also the proximity to Pioneer, to the elementary school out there. It really forces them to detour around in their buses, which adds wear and tear, or if they can drive through it, and adds even more wear and tear to their buses. So it certainly benefits the school district for that. The original term of the TIF district, when we set this up in 2016, was a 10-year term, so it expires in 2026. There's been movement at the federal level to extend some of the wind energy tax credits as well, and so as part of that, and that's one of the reasons I think why you've seen activities wind down some in the last year or so, is a lot of those tax credits were expiring. They were kind of pausing on what they were doing, and hopefully be in a position to ramp back up now going forward. So we would extend that out by 10 years. It captures 100% of the taxes that get generated, again, just on the increment district, so that inventory and the real property. 65% of the inventory component only gets rebated back to TP&L as an incentive to basically route as much of their inventory through this location as they possibly can. The reason why that was important and continues to be important is you've got a state like Kansas that you're competing against where they don't have a tax on this type of inventory. So it's just a function of the Oklahoma tax structure. They do tax this type of inventory, and so the ability to create this incentive kind of levels the playing field where we can have that economic activity coming through Enid instead of going somewhere else. So that 65% is a rebate. The city receives $100,000 of the remaining funds for the next, basically for the period of time until they're reimbursed fully, and so that'll be a total reimbursement of $1.8 million combined between the what's been done and what's proposed. And then the balance of taxes go to the taxing jurisdictions. So what does that mean? Over the 20-year term, and this is based on looking at what we've seen over the first 5 years, so kind of taking an average of those first 5 years, we expect it to generate just a little bit short of $24 million in total ad valorem taxes over that 20-year time horizon. So about $16 million of that goes to the project costs, with $14.3 million of that as an inventory incentive. To date, through the first 5 years, there's been $3.57 million that's been paid as an inventory incentive. That number could be wildly higher or wildly lower, just simply depending on how they manage the inventory. If there could be a ton that goes through there, but if it doesn't stay there long enough, it won't be subject to tax. And then $1.8 million ultimately would be reimbursed to the city of Enid. So far, they've been reimbursed $500,000. The remaining $7.76 million goes to the taxing entities. Of that, over 20 years, $4.3 million would go to Pioneer Schools. There's been a little over $1 million that's been paid to them to date. You see $1.64 to Autry Technology with $400,000 to date, $1.54 to the county, $375,000 to date, and about $275,000 to the health department with $67,000 paid to date. So this has been something that's, it's taken a piece of ag land that really wasn't generating anything at all. It's become a significant revenue producer for all the existing taxing jurisdictions. So they're benefiting. The city's benefiting by virtue of the improvements that are done and the activity that's going through the city. TIF 9. TIF 9 works almost exactly like TIF 7 does. So this project is to repurpose the Chesterfield building. They want to build or convert it into a remanufacturing facility. So if you're familiar with the stalks and the blades on the wind turbines, the piece in the middle, that's where they actually generate the electricity, the nacelles or the turbines as they call them. Those periodically need maintenance, upgrading, and so what this will create is actually a refurbishment facility where they can upgrade these all the way up to as much as 7 megawatt gearboxes, which is kind of the next generation coming. I think the current ones are around 2 to 3 megawatts roughly, and so that will actually be the first facility of its kind in the United States. So certainly puts the potential competitive advantage for Enid to have something like that here. They'll also construct a new 50,000 square foot building for storage of weather sensitive components. Obviously, you've got things you don't necessarily want laying out in the laydown yard out in the weather, wind and rain and everything, so that provides some good secure storage for that. They project a capital investment of about $25 to $30 million in building improvements, for real property purposes. Also project that by the time they're fully ramped up in 2028, it could create up to 94 full-time positions. And we project an average taxable inventory level of about 25 million per year. Again, it could be quite a bit more, quite a bit less. We think this number will be lower because the bulk of the value would continue to be over at the TP&L site in TIF 7. But with the creation of TIF 9, at that point, we don't really care where they put it because the incentive is the same to the company. The TIF projects that have been proposed for inclusion would be reconstruction of 54th Street south to the Chesterfield building site. TIF 9 would contribute. Estimated about a $1.3 million project cost, and I think that includes about a 15% contingency in the numbers that we used with the review committee. But it would contribute what needs to be done to complete that project, and then it would contribute an additional amount up to a total of $1.8 million towards the future acquisition of new firefighting ladder truck. So the city's in a position within the next few years, they're going to need to replace the ladder truck, and with some larger structures that really require, a larger ladder truck to be able to accommodate safely. That's a city priority. The TIF will provide that because that will benefit. They'll certainly improve the safety of the Chesterfield site and along with other sites throughout the city. So if the road costs $1.4 million, then there'll be $400,000 that could be contributed to the truck. If the road costs $1.2 million, then there'd be $600,000 that could contribute to the truck. Truck's estimated about $1.8 million. Fire trucks are pretty expensive, so. So the original term would be 14 years, and we did this intentionally so that it would end concurrently with the other TIF districts. So we tried to match up the terms on that, December 31, 2036. We capture 100% of the new ad valorem taxes that get generated. Because we have an existing building out there, we do have some amount of baseline value. It actually is generating some tax revenues. Those existing tax revenues will continue to go. They won't be captured by the TIF district. They'll go to the school and the county and everybody else. But it'll just be the new value that's over and above that number. 65% of the inventory would be rebated as an inventory incentive, and then $186,000 of the remaining ad valorem would go to the city to reimbursement up to $1.86 million total, so about 10 years worth. The balance would go to the affected taxing jurisdictions. So over 14 years, estimate about $5 million in total ad valorem revenues that would be generated, about $2.44 million going to project costs. The inventory incentive, again, you see that number is much lower, $577,600, based on the $25 to $30 million a year out there. But again, it could be higher or lower than that. And then $1.86 million coming back to the city to reimburse for project costs. And then the other $2.56 million would be going to the taxing jurisdictions, and you see the breakout, $1.4 million to Pioneer Schools, $500,000 to technology in the county, and then about $91,000 to the county health department. The city apportions the tax revenues, so they're captured, or they're collected. People pay their taxes to the county just like they normally do. They're apportioned by the county and sent over to the city. The city then has various agreements. You have an agreement in place with TP&L relative to 7 that if this passes through, we would need to amend that. We would have a similar agreement with Tachyon relative to TIF 9. The city disperses the revenues as the incentive, and then to the taxing jurisdictions as those funds are received each year. And that direct incentive is pursuant to a public agreement that the city will approve at a later date. And then the infrastructure projects, they're of course public projects, so they're subject to competitive bidding rules and statutes. So the impacts on the taxing jurisdictions or taxing entities, there's potential, maybe a slight increase in populations or students with jobs added if we have people that move into the community. The kind of the combined number, looking over the life of both of these TIFs, should result in about $5.7 million in additional funding to the Pioneer schools, and a little over $2 million to the technology center in the county, and $266,000 to the health department. You know, to the extent that there's any ancillary development, certainly with I think one of the hopes is with the Tachyon facility that there may be additional development that locates in around to support some of the cottage industries, maybe not the right word, but supporting supply chain industries relative to the remanufacturing process. So that could certainly potentially generate additional capital investment that's outside the TIF district and is just enhancement of the tax base immediately. And then technology center opportunities for increased training programs and partnership opportunities. The up to 94 full-time permanent jobs have a projected annual payroll and benefits of about $7.5 million. So that, you know, certainly new to the community, that would be good. One of the important parts, again, the extension of 7 and the creation of TIF 9, how they tie together, is that synergy of having both of these locations where they can get these heavy materials to the community, and then there's a very short distance to be able to get them over, the turbines over to do the remanufacturing process. And so again, it kind of creates a regional hub where there's priority emphasis given to get infrastructure through this area. So again, just increasing the economic activity. So the remaining steps, the review committee made their recommendations on May 27th in meetings. So they did recommend approval of the amendment to 7 and the creation of 9. This is our first public hearing that we'll hold here in a few minutes. Planning Commission will consider on the 20th their resolutions for recommendations. And then on the 21st, we'll have the second hearings and the commissioners to consider the TIF ordinances. That's the presentation. So if you'd like, I think we can go ahead and open. I guess the purpose of these hearings tonight are really a question and answer opportunity. When we come back here in 2 weeks, then that'll be more of just a public comment.
Right.
You know, come up and say you're for or against, yay or nay.
Okay. Thank you. I thought the presentation was very well done. I don't have any questions. Does anybody else?
That was a great explanation of
Yeah.
TIF. I've been doing this a lot of years, and this is the first time that someone has explained, and you did a good job. It's complicated, and you can see all the good in the areas that it goes to, and that helps us understand things a lot better because we recognize the names and the recipients. So thank you.
Thank you.
Good. All right, appreciate that. That said, we'll move to item 6.2, which is to conduct a public hearing regarding the proposed creation of increment district number 9, City of Enid, and the Tachyon Economic Development Project Plan. So nobody really signed up for this, but did anybody wish to address this during the hearing? Okay. Seeing none, and again, there'll be another public hearing on the 21st, but this is your chance to speak if you had any concerns about that. Seeing none, we'll move to item 6.3, conduct a public hearing regarding the proposed amendment of increment district number 7, City of Enid, and the TP&L Economic Development Project Plan. Same question, if anybody had any questions, concerns, we'd be happy to hear that during the hearing. Okay. Seeing none, we will move on. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Item number 7, community development. Item 7.1, hold a public hearing regarding the rezoning of property located at the southwest corner of Chestnut Avenue and Cleveland Street from Agricultural District C3, General Commercial District for storage, retail, and health services and office use.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
I thought you retired.
I'm still with you for a few more days.
All right.
This slide shows where it is in relationship to our community center, which does emphasize and encourages commercial development, and that is what the applicant is seeking. Currently, the property at the inner southwest corner of Chestnut and Cleveland is zoned agricultural, has been probably since the land run, and this is the first opportunity that the applicant has taken to rezone that to C3. It will be developed with commercial uses. There is adequate road, water, and sewer to support the project. Planning Commission reviewed this. Their recommendation is to approve. Can I answer any questions?
I move approval.
Second?
Well, this is a hearing, so I wanted to make sure that does anybody else have wish to speak to this?
Yes, this is the hearing. I apologize. I should
Yeah,
have said that.
that's okay. Okay, I don't see any, so we'll move to item 7.2, which calls a lot more for a vote kind of thing. Consider approval of an ordinance to rezone property located at southwest corner of Chestnut Avenue and Cleveland Street from Agricultural District C3 General Commercial District for storage, retail, health services, and office use. Here's where we would entertain a motion.
Rob?
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 7.3, consider approval of a final plat for Blanton's Corner, Block 1, Northwest Quarter, Section 11, Township 22 North, Range 7 west of the Indian Meridian.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioners, this is the same piece of property that we just approved the rezoning on from Ag to C3. This particular item concerns the platting. This is the site. The next slide shows you the plat. It's being platted into 4 lots. They all have access to road and water, and most of them do sewer. There is going to be a sewer extension along the 3 lots along Chestnut, and the applicant is going to make that extension. Planning Commission also reviewed this. Their recommendation is to approve.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item number 8, administration. Item 8.1, consider approval of an ordinance amending the Enid Municipal Code 2014, Title II, Finance and Taxation, Chapter 6, Fee Schedule, Article F, Building and Construction, to amend Section 2-6F-1, Building Permit Fees, to change the fee structure, to retitle and amend Section 2-6F-2, Building and Other Codes, Appeal Fees, to delete Housing Board of Adjustment, to amend Section 2-6F-3, Electric Permit Fees, to require permits, amend Section 2-6F-8, Plumbing Permit Fees to adjust fees, providing for repealer, savings clause, severability, and codification.
All right, Mayor and Commissioners, it is my great honor to introduce to you Scott Garnand. He is our new code official with the City of Enid. And he's going to do this presentation. No, I'm just kidding.
Baptism of fire.
But we've talked about this several times, and I think we have gotten it down. I think we have the most simple fee structure for buildings and for permits and of the other trades. We've eliminated any type of extra fee for the demolition that was brought up last time. And so it's just very simple. The proposed residential rates for building is 9 cents a square feet. For any carport, it's 7 cents a square foot. For all of the other fees, all of the other minimum fees are only $25, including demolition. And then the trades are 4 cents per square feet, and all of the minimum fees for any of the trades are $25. So if you're residential, $25, and then we have the cents to plug in for new construction. For commercial, it is also very simple. For building permits, 12 cents per square feet. All of the minimum fees are $50. And then for the trades, it's 6 cents per square foot. Minimum fees $50. That is about as simple as we can make it, and I think it still puts us very affordable in the market compared to the other municipalities that are around us, all throughout Oklahoma. So,
move to approve. You've done hard work on this.
Thank you, sir.
A second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay. Yeah, a lot of hard work from everybody. Go ahead and cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Winner, winner.
Right. Item 8.2, consider approval of a resolution authorizing a general fund transfer out of $2.2 million to the Enid Municipal Authority General fund transfer out of $100,000 to the Enid Fire Fund. A general fund transfer out of $500,000 to the Enid Event Center Fund. A general fund transfer out of $307,000 to the Enid Economic Development Authority Fund, and amending the 2021-2022 general fund budget by appropriating additional funds in the amount of $907,000 to increase the 2021-2022 appropriated amounts for the general fund transfers department and $2.2 million to increase the 2021-2022 appropriated amounts for sales tax transfers department.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. This is the time of year, both this meeting and
Yep.
next meeting, we'll be doing some appropriations to clean up everything for the end of the year to make sure that we're within our legal spending limits on everything. This first item tonight is for general fund transfers out. The entirety of this $3 million is available in general fund revenues that we've received this year because sales tax have exceeded what we budgeted when we were conservatively budgeting. We've come in about 9% higher than what we were planning on having to spend. The transfer out of $2.2 million for sales taxes for the 1% sales tax related to Call Lake and the 1% for capital. I anticipate we're going to come in somewhere between 1.8 and 2.2, so I'm asking for authorization up to 2.2. We'll actually transfer whatever comes in, but we don't have that final payment for June yet. When we have that, we will do that transfer. These other three are two specific funds that need the additional funding. The fire fund, first of all, we're asking for a $100,000 transfer there. It's largely based on some retirements that we weren't necessarily planning on and then had some larger payouts. And so we need to transfer money over there to cover those so that we can pay the last two payrolls out this year, so we have enough money to do that. The $307,000 to the Enid Economic Development Authority is made up of three separate things that have caused that. We have just heard the presentation tonight from Nate Ellis for the TIF. At the time that the budget was approved last year, that TIF was not contemplated, and the fee that was approved for their company for $55,000 did not have an appropriation done. And so that is $55,000 of that. $65,000 of it is related to the contractual agreement we have with Enid Crossing Investors, and that was a $950,000 incentive we did for the redevelopment of the old Homeland building that now houses TJ Maxx and PetSmart. At the time we did this budget, those were the only two stores in there. Since then, they've opened 5 below. They've collected more sales tax. We've owed more to them according to the contract, and so we've collected it. We now need to pay that out, so we need the increase. And when we did the new budget, that was contemplated, so we added that third store in. And then the third part of this one is the room rate guarantee for the downtown hotel. We had budgeted $300,000, and whenever we actually did the calculations on that, and it's on the claims list tonight to pay that out, it's about $487,000. So we need $187,000 more to meet that contractual agreement. And then the third fund that we're transferring out to tonight is for the Enid Event Center Fund. And if you'll remember back on May the 10th, Keller Taylor was here. He is the regional vice president for the Oakview Group, who is in charge of managing the event center. At that time, he gave an update for the budget, and he let you know that this year that they were projecting to come in with a higher deficit than what was budgeted. He said that they were planning on coming in at a $742,000 deficit. They were only budgeted to have a $420,000 deficit. The final numbers that we have right now are through December. So while they are projecting to only need a transfer of up to $320,000 more, I'm not comfortable with the large swings that I see in things from month to month. And when I go look at their history of only asking you for $320,000, knowing I may not know for several months the true final numbers. And so I would feel comfortable that we're going to be within legal spending authority if you give me the authorization to move up to $500,000 if needed. But if it's not needed, we will only send over what is needed to cover that deficit. Some of the reasons that Keller gave at that meeting for the change in the number was that the budget submission coming in at May of 21, they weren't certain what was going to happen with the industries. The The touring content has not been what he thought it would be at that time. The industry for meetings and convention has not come back as strong as they thought it was going to after COVID, and that we've had some canceled shows and underperforming shows in FY22, along with a reduction in the holiday and meeting schedules. So that's the information I have at this time as regarding what the need is there to cover with this additional transfer to the event center and the other funds. Is there any questions I can answer for you on any of those?
I have a question. Maybe I just don't understand what you told me, but what is the total deficit that the event center had for the last fiscal year?
For the current fiscal year that we're in, we budgeted a $420,000 deficit.
Okay.
And they are projecting a $742,000 deficit.
Okay.
That's their projection.
What is your projection?
I don't know. I went back and evaluated. It's really difficult because I don't know all the shows and all the bookings that they have because I don't have that level of detail into their financials. So I feel comfortable that the $500,000 number would be adequate. I don't really have the level of detail to make the assessment I would like to make whenever I can with all of our information.
This is a disturbing number, and this is the only reason I'm asking the question. So,
Absolutely.
And I'll piggyback on what Commissioner Stallings mentioned. It just hurts me to have to, and this is not directed toward you, Aaron, it just pains me that we're paying $720,000 to supplement an event center. It just hurts. It really does. It's so much money we could be using towards other things. And I hope next year brings better numbers for us. And when Keller comes back, and hopefully we can get back, and I'd rather have the bad news up front than get to the end of the FY and figure out that we owe them another $325,000. That just hurts.
Commissioner, I will tell you, I've already contemplated and visited with Keller. I know our new general manager is named Jeff Bemis, and he will be here on July 5th. And we need him, so we'll probably I'm going to give him about a month to get his feet on the ground. In August, I'm going to ask Keller to come in with Jeff and talk to us about how things are looking then. We definitely, everybody concurs, we need to get closer to break even. And I will tell you and echo what he said is we've gone, the other way. And I think there's some they may not be good reasons, but they're valid reasons from the perspective of the industry. And so I think that I look forward to getting the new guy in here and Keller, and we will bring them in probably in August, I think, to give you an update. And I know we're going to update you quarterly from there on so that everybody will know. I will tell you one of the things we're also going to do that I can say I haven't done a good job of. We definitely look at this dollars and cents, just like we talked about. But what we don't ever tell you, because it's not something she tracks, but we talk about it on other stuff, is the indirect benefits. And I know that one of the things on May the 10th that Rob Houston also talked about is he's got some new software where he knows exactly what events are happening. And I think it's important for him to update us too. And he said that he was working on that, on the indirect impacts. In other words, if there's a $500,000 impact over the course of a year, not directly from revenues there, but from people spending money in restaurants, people staying in hotels, ideally the Glow, and spending money at the gas station. There is an amount there. I don't know what it is. He has a calculator, and I know he told you that he will be doing that. So I think that would be part of that presentation.
Well, I have a question. We've had a presentation about this a few months ago, and they weren't talking about $700,000 then, were they? Did I miss something?
Yes, it was in that presentation.
That was the number that he was kicking out, was 700,000?
Yes.
Well, maybe I missed something, because I thought it was more like 550,000.
550 is what they're projecting for next year's budget.
Okay.
But he did include that this year would be 740 is what they were projecting.
Okay.
He did show a history, and I can't remember the exact best number we ever got to, but I think it was around 400. We think that we can probably get even better than that once the hotel gets up and they do some more, but I think he needs to come in and talk about that in the strategy, and plan to do that in August.
And I know we talked earlier, I know the hotel deal just adds injury to insult on this whole thing. And I know we talk about economic impact and this and that, but it may take a little bit of the sting out of making these payments, but it doesn't justify it to me. And hopefully we can get some better answers next year.
I do have some news there. In May, which is the start of the new year, the hotel was at 45%, a little over 45%, which is the highest it's been. I know that June is shaping up to be a very good month with the World Series and everything. So we'll update you on that too as we go, because I think we got to remember it's the first year of operating that hotel, and so I believe that we'll be above 40% in the next year, and I think if we are, we'll have an opportunity to claw back part of what we contractually owe now.
What were our numbers before COVID, before the shutdown? Was it like 400,000 to 500,000 when it came to the event center?
Do you have the numbers? Okay. She's my fact checker.
Always got the numbers.
The very first year was 780,000, and we got down to the point that we came in at 419 in FY19 before COVID. So trend down the whole time, and then COVID, of course, has kicked it back up. Mm-hmm.
And as you recall in the presentation, I mean, nobody makes money on these, unfortunately.
Right.
And that's the hard part for me to eat, to take a bite out of that apple, that we're going to lose $500,000 every year, you know.
Well, there's some factors that can impact that. Again, they have a duty to do everything they can. I think they are, and I think they can come in. There's probably more they can do. Within this, what you're asking for is not just for, a lot of it is the Stride Bank Center, but in this fund, there are other things that come in and flow out of that. We pay hotel tax. We don't get to keep it all. We pay for Visit Enid, and we don't ask about how much money it generates. We pay for capital improvements. If we didn't do any capital improvements, that would make the whole thing look better, but we know we're going to have some capital improvements. So I'm not trying to sugarcoat. We need to do better, and they need to come in and tell us how we've hired them to help us do better. But I think that it's reasonable to think that we're going to pay something for quality of life. And I know that I hear sometimes, you know, people don't want to do that. Well, then we don't need to have a swimming pool. We don't need to have parks, because those don't pay for themselves. They really don't. And as we look at improvements in those areas, those will cost money. And I think it's fair to look at, the Stride Center is not going to generate, it's not going to be, I don't think it's going to make money. I think if we ever broke even, it'd be cost for a celebration. But I think that when we look at the results of those operations and factor in the impact that it has on the other businesses, I think it's fair to look at that too. But there's no doubt we need to do better. They need to do better managing it for us. And I'm going to have them in here in August.
Well, I agree with you. It's a quality of life issue, and this is probably not the time to be having this discussion. But when I talk to people about it, a lot of people say that, yeah, it's a quality of life. We recognize that. My problem is the balance. You know, how much is quality of life worth? And I about gotten used to $500,000. Now I'm at 700,000.
Well, I think he told us at the time, I think in the new budget, I don't recall what he said the debt was. At 550. I don't think he would have told you that unless he's reasonably sure he's going to get there. That doesn't mean, stuff happens. But I will say, again, not making excuses, we've come off a difficult 2 or 3 years, but you're right. I think we need to get it back down to $500,000 or less.
Carol, can I make a motion to approve 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4? Do we need to do them individually? We already did
All
that.
3 resolutions?
They're just, yes.
Yeah, you can do that.
Because we already did 8.1.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that we approve the resolutions for items 8.2, 8.3, and 8.4.
Okay. Have a second?
Can I ask the question while we're
Yep.
standing still?
Yep.
On A2, can we approve everything in that except for the part of it that we were just discussing? Just a question.
If we don't approve an appropriation, then we will, for the event center, we will be over budget by the end of the year. Even if they stop operations today, they still have indirect expenses, and then we would be illegal on our budget. So
Okay.
we need to approve an appropriation.
Thank you for the understanding.
Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve 8.2.
Okay. Second. Motion and a second. Any other discussion on 8.2? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank
I
you.
make a motion that we approve 8.3.
Second. Okay. Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution for 8.4.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item number 9, consent agenda items.
Move to approve all consent except for, there was a bid in here that came up. Extreme.
Yeah, where they're redoing it.
Yeah, that's the one for the, I believe it's
9.7?
Or 9, is it 9.5? Let me see, where's it 9?
Before they were doing the Meadow Lake thing?
Yeah.
That was 9.5.
The Meadow Lake Trail or the shore?
No, it's
Not
where
the
they were going to
trail.
do the shoreline.
The shore. Is that
Because it was shocking. I opened up that bid.
9.9, yeah. So you want to do everything but 9.9, Meadow Lake shore stabilization?
Which is a reject all bids.
Yeah, it's a reject.
Okay, so reject all, okay, just making sure. All right.
So do you want to exclude that, or do you want to modify your motion?
Well, we can keep it as is because it's already written. I just
Well,
noticed.
it's to repeal it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, move to approve all of the consent items.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item number 10, recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. Item number 11, all trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority regular meeting are in attendance. Item number 12, the Enid Municipal Authority regular meeting is now in session. Item 12.1, approval of claims in the amount of $246,697.85.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 13, adjourn to convene as the Enid Economic Development Authority. Item 14, all trustees of the Enid Economic Development Authority regular meeting are in attendance. Item 15, the Enid Economic Development Authority regular meeting is now in session. Item 15.1, consider approval of a resolution increasing the 2021-2022 fiscal financial plan for the Enid Economic Development Authority in the amount of $307,000.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 15.2, approval of claims in the amount of $512,125.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item 16, adjourn to convene as the Enid Public Transportation Authority. Item number 17, all trustees of the Enid Public Transportation Authority regular meeting are in attendance. Item 18, the Enid Public Transportation Authority regular meeting is now in session. Item 18.1, approval of claims in the amount of $5,298.32.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Item number 19, adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Commission. Item number 20, executive session. Item 20.1, consider convening into executive session upon recommendation of the city attorney to discuss development of economic development incentives for a department store and a movie theater to locate in Enid pursuant to 25 OS 307 C11 economic development, and discuss the remaining unacquired real property interest for Caw Lake Pipeline pursuant to 25 OS 307 B4, negotiations to acquire real property interest for the Caw Lake Pipeline, and attorney-client privilege to engage in confidential communication between the public body and its attorney because disclosure would seriously impair the ability of the public body to proceed with this matter in the public's interest, and reconvene into regular session to take any necessary action.
Move for executive session.
Okay?
Second.
Motion and a second to go into executive session. Any other discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 7-0. We'll meet upstairs at 7:45.
Your voice was good.
I'm just one.